This is David Finzer of Truth That Lies Radio. You can join our conversation by calling toll-free in the U.S. and Canada at 1-855-655-2121, or you can call us on Skype at ORN Live. In this last segment, I want to talk a little bit about offshore structures and asset protection. Asset protection has changed over the years. When I first started, the biggest concern that anyone had was about being sued. Now the biggest concern that people have is felony forfeiture and being indicted. Because the government doesn't sue you anymore, they indict you. They don't try you and when it get a judgment against you, they grab your assets and then you have to go into court and prove that they shouldn't have. So asset protection becomes more important every day. My motto is expatriate your assets before you expatriate yourself. You don't want to be like so many refugees that have been seen in the 20th century where they are driven from their homes, everything taken away from them, and all they have is maybe, if they're lucky, one suitcase. And under the legislation that's just been signed into law in the United States, any American citizen can be declared a terrorist. They can be deprived of all their civil rights. So you better start thinking about what will happen if you have to get out and can't afford for someone to send in a black helicopter to pick you up and make you disappear. Now, like every other industry, asset protection and offshore finance is constantly changing. And these days, it's changing faster than ever. Yesterday's great tax haven is today's sellout. Right now, the Panamanian Congress is debating, I don't think they've passed it yet. As of last week, they had not passed it from what I'd heard from our attorneys there. They are debating a tax exchange information treaty with the United States. Not one that starts in the future, but one that it goes 3 years retroactive. So every American who placed their faith in Panama, that Panama would never sell out their banking secrecy, is going to be screwed. The Panamanian government is going to turn over their information to the United States government. I predicted that a couple of years ago when they finally decided to build the new canal. I said at that time, and unfortunately was right, and I wish I hadn't been, that in order to get the finance for the canal, they would have to sell out offshore, and they most surely did. You also have to look, another good place is a place that used to be good and now is not, is Belize. Belize used to allow bearer share corporations where you could keep the bearer share, had decent laws, decent trusts. I visited Belize a year and a half ago, and this is straight from the horse's mouth. I sat down and had a meeting with the deputy governor of the Central Bank of Belize, and she told me, quote, the Belize government will sign tax exchange information agreements with any country that asks. Now, in my experience, countries have a trend. They're getting better in terms of privacy and bank secrecy, or they're getting worse. Most of the countries in the world are getting worse. A few are getting better. What they've done is they have set up non-offshore offshore. For example, New Zealand, which is where we have our trust companies, is a full member of the OECD. Now, if you don't know what that means, First of all, it's a bad, bad word. Think of the ugliest word you know, and this is worse. Stands for the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Now that sounds innocuous, but what its goal is to have the governments take over the world financial system, to have all transactions cashless, completely transparent, and not allow any tax competition anywhere. Now here is the real kicker. The people who run the OECD in Paris are all considered international civil servants, which means, guess what? Their income is tax-free. Hypocrisy. Even bigger hypocrisy. What's the biggest, most successful tax haven in the world? You might think the Cayman Islands, you might think the BVI, you might think the Channel Islands, you might think Hong Kong. In fact, since I suspect most of you are in the United States, it's your own country. The United States is a tax haven for everyone in the world who is not a U.S. person or U.S. resident. A single member limited liability company in Delaware, Florida, Washington, D.C., Wyoming, Nevada, if it can do business anywhere in the world except the United States, it can have a tax number, and not only is it 100% tax-free, it is also doesn't even have to file a tax return. The U.S. is driving out the competition when it tries to squash tiny little islands. That's the only way they can make their money. It's incredible. Someone's called in. So, hello. Are you there? I guess they didn't like the sound of my voice. So, what we do and what has to be done is constantly assess which direction a country is going when you're looking at it for a possible structure. You have to do the same thing with banking. In the 6 years that my company, Capital Conservator, has been in business in trust banking, we've changed banks 7 times. We've changed them because either the country became unstable, the bank became unstable, we got worried, so we pulled the money out, and consequently our customers have not lost a penny. Any loss that occurred was absorbed by us. Trusts. A lot of people will tell you the strongest asset protection vehicle is a trust. I'm sorry. I am in a minority. I disagree. Judges hate trusts because they don't believe that someone would take all or substantially all of their assets and give it away to a trustee and give up control over it. I was called as an expert witness in a court in Los Angeles, and when the judge heard what I did for a living, he ruled, he said, as a finding of fact, that my profession was illegal and that asset protection, even using the laws of the United States, was illegal. So they really, really hate trusts. The good thing is you can provide all of the asset protection that a trust provides, all of the inheritance protection, and judges and juries can understand an LLC because you trade your assets for a membership interest in an LLC. There are all kinds of structures, there are all kinds of combinations. Anyone who tries to sell you a one-size-fits-all, run like hell, because they do not have your best interests at heart. The real problem is most people have a company or trust formation license in one country. And so they only have to sell what they have to sell. It's like American Motors. Remember Rambler? All they could